And welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program. Today's program is going to be dealing, well, with a main subject, but we're going to probably go all over the place as we usually do. Returning guest. We love to have guests who return to our program to talk about the work that they are doing. Karen Abrams is my guest. Thank you so much for being back with us again. This is going to be, I think it's going to be a lot of fun and very educational. I hope entertaining, as well as inspiring, because there is a certain element, I believe, in this conversation we're going to have, that people need to remember to be grateful. I think that gratitude in all areas of life, but especially this one, seems to me like you need to make it incorporate it. I like to use the word grok. They need to grok it. Look, that's a word from Stranger in a Strange Land. It's like to assimilate into every cell, every subatomic particle of your being, the concept. So thank you for being with us to help us to do that.
Well, I'm so honored to be here again, Richard. It's so much fun. So much fun the first time I had to come back again.
First of all, I love the color blue you're wearing.
Thank you. I love this color. It's like my favorite color. This is like such a happy color for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Between that and the purple that I grew up with the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah.
That was one of their colors.
There you go.
Loved that. Not so much the Suns, because we had two shots at a world championship in the 70s and 90s, and we missed it by that much. But that's another story for another program. Today's program, we're going to focus.
Forgiveness.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to talk about money. But I think that what we need to do, because everybody has a little different take on it, I think one of the things that we might want to do first is define it. What is it? And when we talk about it, and are we talking here literally, materially, or metaphorically, symbolically, spiritually? From what perspective do we want to start?
Well, I think if we start on this planet, the 3D world, it's a form of exchange. It's an energy exchange. That's what it became, right? It used to be trades for goods or services. And then somebody figured out, if we gave these piece of paper or these coins, we can go about this in a different way. And so we got into this exchange of value through this. And it certainly is a indicator of the value you have, that internal value that you have. One of my favorite quotes from one of my mentors is one where she says, your net worth will only go as high as your self-worth. And I think that's a really great indicator of what's out there and where you put yourself, especially if you are an entrepreneur. And, but other people, going into work and finding a job, and it's this much money for this job, and these are the kind of jobs I keep getting. And so I think that energy that, I believe that the universe reflects back what you put out into it. And so, and what you focus on starts showing up more in your life. So if you are having money issues, and look, we've had inflation, we've had a lot of disruptors that have been going on. Obviously, politically, it's been a bit of an up and down for the past, 8 years. There's been a bigger struggle than even before that. And that tends to get people to vote for their pocketbook. And even when it doesn't necessarily help them, which is kind of wild, but, there's also misinformation that's in there that helps them vote against themselves, essentially. So it's a big subject. It's one that I think of it, as a healer, and I do this work called Theta Healing, which is all about doing a process that helps you connect to your inner wisdom and your subconscious mind so that you can shift those beliefs and those feelings that are causing you to either, be held back in your life because you believe you're not, you're worth nothing and nothing ever is going to go well for you, or I'm always going to struggle with money. It would be one of them too, right? Or you have feelings that have put a mark on you, like trauma. We can have poverty or money trauma, and people can have all sorts of trauma and all sorts of grief. I usually think about money issues as life issues that have hit your wallet. right?
Mm.
And you don't
Mhm.
know, for everybody, it's going to be something different. And we can talk about changing these beliefs on the subconscious level, which is really important because what you believe and what you feel, right? You're just going to pull more of that experience to you because your ego and your mind wants you to be right. See,
Mm.
I knew life was hard. I knew it's a struggle. It's a struggle for every penny. I knew it. I'm right. I'm right. I'm right. And that gives us that sense of security, not comfort,
Yeah.
but security that I know how the world works. This is the way it works. This is the way it's worked for me. And this is the way it's worked for my dad, my grandfather. Life has always been this way. And so, and even when we want to come out of it and say, yeah, I know that, sometimes we still have those old ancestral beliefs that are there messing with us with this new thought of, I can create my own reality. I can change that. Those things can change. And then you get this other part that's saying this, right? It's the devil and the angel on the shoulders.
Hmm.
And so that conflict can create a weird energy signature, for lack of a better way to put it, so that you'll get money and then it'll go away. I like to call those a snapback. Have you ever had
Hmm.
those where you get like a downfall of money
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, your radiator falls out of your car
Yeah.
and there goes the money? Or, you find out there's a plumbing issue or there's something, whatever it is, it's something, or a health issue gone. And you're like, well, I'm glad I had that money to give to this thing, but why is that something that's happened more than once? And that's usually because of a complicated relationship with money. And I also just believe that money is that place where we can love ourselves or we may not. It just as much as any other relationship, that's a relationship that needs to be tended to.
Yeah. So we've got self-fulfilling prophecies. We've got the outside
Right.
messages from coming in. We've got the experiences as you just described, inflow,
Yeah.
money comes in, goes out almost as fast, and those kinds of
Right.
things. And this is where I mentioned earlier about gratitude. Let's talk about
Right.
the money that comes in and then goes out just as fast. The radiator falls out of the car, for example, and
Right.
what have you. And instead of being upset over the fact that, oh, I was going to use that for something else, being
Right.
grateful, oh, thank God that money was there so I can take care of the radiator and keep the car going, you know.
Right. Right.
And then
Yeah.
we also have, from the philosophical perspective, we have, and of course, I was born and raised Catholic, and of course,
Uh-huh.
read the Bible several times, especially the New Testament, where Jesus
Uh-huh.
talks about how his disciples are all bent out of shape over where are we going to sleep tonight, and what am I going to wear tomorrow, and what are we going to eat? No, no, no. And he says, wait a minute, hold the phone. No phones back then, but anyway,
I was to say,
uh,
even though it wasn't invented, this is what he meant.
that's what he meant. That's exactly what he meant. Um, do you see that bird up in the tree? That bird doesn't work. It doesn't toil. And yet it's taken care of. Look at the flowers, the lilies of the field. Today, look how beautiful they are. And tomorrow, they're going to blow away in the wind. And yet, you are one of the creator's creation, if you will. If you want to use the child analogy, what have you. How much more will you be taken care of? So we have that perspective of, hey, don't worry about it. You're going to have what you need. And then there's that other aspect too of what you just talked about as well in terms of, oh well, life isn't fair and this and that, the other, and you can justify that
Right. Yeah.
statement by looking at the people who are, and I don't even know what term to use anymore, the homeless, the houseless,
Right. Yeah.
et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera.
Uh-huh.
But those people who do not have a structure to go into to lay down their head and
Right.
keep their
Yeah.
clothes in and their
Uh-huh.
food and so on and so forth and their families.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have, it seems like, Karen, we have a lot, in a manner of speaking, we have a lot to overcome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where do we begin? Now, you have a quiz we'll talk about in a minute. I actually took this
Mm-hmm.
Mastering Your Money quiz.
Uh-huh.
Um, and we'll go over that in a moment. But from your perspective, especially with the
Right.
theta healing that you do,
Mm-hmm.
where do we begin, those who are listening or watching,
Uh-huh.
to start the process if, as I have stated on this program, I'm now in a position to say, universe, I want more and I want to start with $100,000 to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I start? Where do we start?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a very good question. In this work, we go into this, I call it a very powerful meditation to access both of those things, your subconscious mind, because this is where everything's at, and that divine wisdom, so that you can bring those two things together, the most loving perspective you would have on everything that's happened to you, everything that you believe, so that you can shift these beliefs, because that sense of who you are was created with a nascent brain, right? From 0 to 7, we are in theta all the time. And which means that everything that people say to you, everything that people do to you, everything that you say to others and do to others is all imprinted in this brain, which is why your subconscious mind is why your childhood is so powerful, because everything just gets boom right in there. And as you know, especially with parenting, if we all had to apply to be a parent, no one would get the job. Nobody's qualified, and so you need nobody's really, but because the things that come up now, you're like, how was I supposed to get ready for that one? Right.
Yeah.
And what's thrown at people at times, right? We've got to kind of collect ourselves and move forward. So with this work, we go to find out what's holding you back. What are those beliefs? What are the things that you're feeling that are trapped? What is it? Abandonment and grief and trauma, and get to these bottom things. And then, like I said, when you're in the theta brainwave, your mind can talk to your body. And we know, even in Chinese medicine, we know and even in Western medicine, we hold emotions in different organs, right? And in Western medicine, we say, well, you get ulcers in your stomach, you're stressed out, right? We talk a lot about stress as being a focal point of disease and inflammation. In Chinese medicine, we'll say, oh, okay, so there's anger in the liver in this work, there's anger and resentment in your kidneys. So we're holding different emotions in different organs. It's just kind of where it's held. So when you can shift these, transform these emotions into unconditional love and understanding and compassion, you start feeling better and lighter. And this wonderful process starts where, because you're feeling better, you start making better decisions, and you start letting in people who have healthy boundaries, like your boundaries are getting healthier, right? Because now you feel like you deserve more from the inside out. We know that, cerebrally, we know, and intellectually, I deserve more than that, right? And I deserve, I'm a good person. I help people. I could do this, or I'm a business person. I'm out there doing my work. I should get this. And so we know all of those things, but we don't necessarily feel it. And unless we get into our subconscious mind and change it at that level, we're just painting a dirty wall. And so we'll get I'm wealthy and people love me, and do these affirmations. And I just remember when I first found out about affirmations, they didn't help me. All they helped me realize is what I really believed. So if I'm a money magnet and people love me, and at that moment, I'm like, both of those aren't really that true. So why am I saying it in the mirror? This is ridiculous. And so I'd go there and I'd shut myself off, because I knew that there was something else, but at that point in time, I didn't know how to reach for that and find it. And so we can come from that space and really get in there to change that stuff. And then it also helps you with procrastination, because we have these barriers where we know there's something we should be doing. We're like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Right. There's probably something, that you can do that might help out, and you're not doing it because it's too much of a pain in the butt, or I'll suffer because of it, or I'll have to leave my wife for a little while to get it done. And you're making a choice over a choice. And, things like that. And so what happens is those invisible barriers start going down, and it's like, oh, I could do that.
Yeah.
Oh, I could do that.
I want to stop you there for just a moment.
Yeah.
I want you to help me I want you to clarify something for me. The difference between, because you talked about deserving.
Yeah.
All right. Now, my parents, my mother's 90 this year. My father's passed on. They sent us children, all 6 of us, their last will and testament like years ago. I remember reading through it, and I will inherit certain things. Okay.
Right.
But I don't know why this went through me. After I read it, I'm going, they didn't leave me anything. And I almost called one of my sisters to say, what's the deal? How come? And I thought about it, and I thought, no, maybe I'll call my mom. And no. And then I got that internal, will you please reread the will? Reread
Mm-hmm.
it, boy.
Uh,
I did. I did. And it's
uh,
like, oh my God, it's right there. What is my
yeah.
problem? I almost made some phone calls that would have gotten me into probably a lot of
Right.
hot water. Needless
Right.
to say, what I want you to define the difference between deserving, and to me, that inheritance, if you will, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
their child, I
Mm-hmm.
deserve, and I'm not saying that, let me back it up. Deserving versus entitled to. And I know a lot of people who they're in the will and they think they're entitled to, or
Mm-hmm.
the government. They think that the government, they're entitled to this, that, and the other thing, as opposed to deserving. Talk a little bit about the juxtaposition. And maybe there are other words that I'm not using that would better split that atom, if you will, in terms of recognizing, hey, I am worthy versus look who I am, give it to me.
Mm-hmm. Right. I believe that the worthiness has to do with, like we said, the value that you believe that you already have.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that self-esteem is also like a value that you reflect off somebody else. So if you
Mm-hmm.
treat me poorly, then I think, oh, well, I'm not, I'm not worth it. And so I think poorly of myself. And entitlement is has that extra added, it does have deserving in it, which is healthy. And entitlement tends to have, and the way that we use it now
Mm-hmm.
is that it's already in place, that there's been practice here, that it's already been given for no reason, right? Because if you're wealthy, then you feel entitled to take people's water from the valley, like
Right,
you
right.
feel like you give yourself license to do to go beyond where you're at. So it can be used in a healthy. I mean, I kind of get that you can be entitled and still be a person of with ethics and all of those sorts of things. We tend to hear it more in a negative spin now.
Mm,
Mostly in the collective, we talk about being entitled is a bad thing. But
yeah,
if you feel entitled to having a wonderful life, then and you feel entitled to joy and you feel entitled to having a joyful life, no one's gonna no one's gonna call you a bastard for that,
yeah.
like,
Well,
but we use
the founding
right,
fathers even said we have certain inalienable rights, and one of
right,
those
uh-huh,
happens to be, and I even asked this question of my last few guests. And I put this to you too. Do you think maybe they knew something about this, and that's why they put it in there? In addition to life, liberty, which are only a few, they said these among
mm-hmm,
them are the
mm-hmm,
pursuit of happiness. They're not saying
right,
your inalienable right is happiness. It's the
right.
pursuit. Do you think they knew something what that was about, and that's why they put that in there?
I believe that obviously, I mean, we're talking about the 1700s, so
Yeah,
people really had to work hard just to make what they had. So life was a struggle and life was
yeah,
hard. So instead of saying they're entitled to be happy, that I don't know that that was an option for many, and maybe not
mm,
even an option for the founding fathers, because they tended to be wealthy and men for the
yeah,
most part. They were definitely very intelligent men, for the most part. And so they had that sense of an ideal, and brought together. There was a lot of great thinkers in there. There were also people, other kinds of people there too. But it feels like it's more about that they knew that happiness was something, but happiness was more of a goal as opposed to, that the journey was getting to happiness.
ah,
And they did have happiness, if they had a kid, or, there's a marriage and those sorts of things. There was happiness, and it was fleeting.
yeah,
I mean, think about what life was like,
yeah,
there were no toilets, I mean, like there's no
yeah,
sewage, there's no sewer systems there, there were different things that we find that is just, so we feel entitled to having a toilet in our house. We
yeah,
feel entitled to have a sink, so there's certain things that we already believe that since they're here, they'll always be here. So therefore, that's just part of my reality.
yeah.
So it's just that we tend to look at wealth and entitlement inside wealth as a wealthy person is taking something away from somebody else because they feel like they're entitled to things that don't even belong to them.
Yeah.
And
So let's talk a little bit about that too, in terms of the volume of things, resources, we'll
Yeah.
use that broad perspective. Because obviously, within the metaphysical community in particular, there is this whole conversation around the attitude of lack, not
Uh-huh.
having enough. And when
Uh-huh.
I say I am content and I want more, that is not because I'm not content, because I want more because I don't have enough. No,
Right.
it's because I want
Hmm.
to do more. And of course, even in scripture, it says, to whom much is given, much is expected, or there's a greater responsibility there. And I'm good
Uh-huh.
with that. I understand that. So talk to us about,
Yeah.
because that's really is a ingrained in us, especially here in this country that has so much.
Right. You have to work hard to make a living. You have to work hard to achieve your dreams. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the, oh gosh, what were they called? Who are the pilgrims? I am so sorry. I'm having a mommy brain moment.
Well,
They
they were
were
certainly the religious who came over here to get away from Puritans.
Puritanical.
Ah, there
Sorry.
you go.
There they go. We went ding, 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 ding.
Thank you,
Puritans for
universe.
50. Yeah, there you go. You came in. So they came, they're the first white Europeans to stay.
Hmm.
How's that? And then so they kind of made the imprint of life is hard, life is unenjoyable for the most part, and
Hmm.
then you procreate and then you die at some point in time, and then they also began to believe that this land was given to them by God after
Hmm.
they were persecuted, and so they came out here to do that. So these were the first Eurocentric belief systems that people were coming into when they came to this country. I'm sure that was also something that was happening in Europe too, because there's a lot of suffering and a lot of working hard there too. So I don't know that it was that much different. And they just brought that mindset here.
Yeah.
And that has stayed. And when we came up with that concept of the American dream, it was work hard and then so that your kids and sacrifice so that your kids could do better than you, right? When the
Hmm.
immigrants,
Hmm.
because everybody comes from an immigrant, even if you came from the Mayflower, you were an immigrant.
Yeah.
You came here and you're just some of the first people who came over, or the first Europeans that came over. So we started with that kind of ethic and then working the land, right? That kind of ethic, pushing back to take land,
Hmm.
right? It's like uh, we're the ones who are blessed by God to do this. And that was their belief. And they thought, and they had to do what people do when they take over countries. They had to demonize or objectify the people who are already there and say, well, they're godless people and they don't deserve to live. They need to be converted and all of those sorts of things. So we went on a whole other path and pushed all the native people, right? All the Native Americans to different places.
Hmm.
And so, but that became part of the struggle too.
Yeah.
So not only were we fighting for wherever nature, can we grow our crops and can we feed ourselves? Then we were having battles with Native Americans who just wanted to be on their land. They didn't feel sense of ownership. They just were there. This is where they lived and they shared it. But Europeans came from a different mindset, which was, right, it was cold weather. So you need to gather things together. You need to have a shelter. So
Mm.
you live through and survive through the winter. And so that sense of gathering things and holding on to things and getting, taking from the environment was just part of survival
Yeah.
and a way of gaining prosperity, as it were.
Yeah.
That the more objects you had, the more likely you were, the more food you had, the more objects you had, the more shelter you had, the more likely you were going to be able to survive. So that became a sign of wealth.
Yeah. Well, and I know too that with that whole dynamic that has existed down through our history of the United States,
Right.
that that's just the way it was. We're not saying it's good or bad. It's just that's the way it was, And I find it a little frustrating when I hear people criticizing this kind of conversation that we're having, being taught
Uh-huh.
in classrooms, and oh, you're trying to get people to hate America, and no, we're not. We're trying to take
No, we're just
a look at the truth of our history,
you're
the
right. Yeah,
good, the bad, and the ugly. It's because,
absolutely.
quite honestly, it is all of that that has made us who we are as a country. And it is all
Yeah.
of that same concept that has made each one of us individuals who we are today. Regret, for example, waste. It's a waste because if we could go back in time and undo
Hmm.
that which we regret,
Right.
we wouldn't
Yeah.
be who we are today.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, I need to start from this place.
Hmm.
I I'm a good person. I'm a good man, just doing the best I can.
Hmm.
And now I need to take a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of how I got here. And maybe I have to go through some processing, maybe some counseling, some therapy,
Uh-huh.
self examination, that kind of thing, to say what's the word I want, to have some peace over those
Right.
things. I'm not. It's not saying that I was justified or anything. It's just saying
Right.
that was part of my life, and that was
Right.
me then. It's not me
Yeah.
now. I've learned a
Right.
lot. And that's why
Right.
someone asked me not long ago, so why don't you talk about all of the mistakes that you've made in your life? And I said, I've never made a mistake in my life. I've had
Uh-huh.
learning experience, life lessons, learning experiences.
Right.
That's what
Hmm.
I've had, not mistakes. And I realize that
Right.
goes against the grain of what is referred to as the Judeo-Christian ethic in this country, supposedly.
Right.
But it's like, wait a minute. I thought we had, under the First Amendment, freedom of religion. And my religion, or philosophy, as I like to call it, is that
Hmm.
my beliefs of yesterday are not my beliefs of today, are not my beliefs of tomorrow. I'm learning and growing and experiencing and so forth.
Hmm.
I want to experience more when it comes to this whole aspect of, and we'll now put a finer point on finance. And we're going to talk more about that
Hmm.
with Karen Abrams here on the program, as we talk about also the Theta Healing that she has developed. And we're going to talk more about that here on Tell Me Your Story. And I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I thank you so much for being with us here with Karen Abrams. And Karen, this is a fascinating conversation that we are going to have here as we continue talking
Uh-huh.
about, um, if I was to paint a broader brush stroke, if you will, it would be
Right.
abundance,
Uh-huh.
prosperity,
Right.
and so forth. A finer point might be finance, banking, and so forth. And you have a quiz that is available from your website
Right.
that people
Hmm.
can take, and they can go
Hmm.
there. By the way, what is that website, so that we can start giving that out and people can, while they're listening, they could even take that quiz?
Awesome. Okay. It's called Think by THINK. So Think Theta, THETA.com. And
Mhm.
yeah, just when you go onto the website, the quiz will come up and it'll give you an opportunity. It's really fun little quiz. And I take it every once in a while, I'll go and take it too. And what it does is it gives you gives you a viewpoint of where is your relationship with money right now. And then it gives you a theta healing meditation, which really means, and we'll talk about, and you'll experience it later, is energetic downloads of healing your relationship wherever it's at,
Yeah.
so that it can elevate into something else. And also I just like to say that one of the best things that you can do on the ground, and this is why when I do energy work with people, I'm also giving them practical tools, because we got to work on this planet. We can't just
Hmm.
meditate in a cave and everything's fine. And this is more of a process, but it gets you into a meditation brainwave, because we know that the theta brainwave is a learning brainwave. We know it hits our subconscious. It's also our insight and our creativity.
Hmm.
And so all these wonderful things in that connection, and it's all these wonderful things. So to get into that state is really great. And it's right when you're going into your dream state. So right when you know you're kind of tipping off, but you're not here, you're not there, you're just
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
just in that hallucination. And when you're in that hallucination, your legal hallucination, um, you are, you know, you're open. You're open to the insight, and the most loving insight there is.
So you
And
tell
that's
me I
why
don't need to
it's
go
so
down to Peru to
powerful.
take ayahuasca?
You don't have to do that. You can do this here. But also, one thing that you can do on the ground
Hmm.
is the best way to get your relationship with money into a better space is really to treat it like a cherished friend.
Mm,
So have it be a relationship like I would say, and let me put this out as a big intuition, that you have a wonderful relationship with your wife, that you're very connected to, you very much love her, and you're very much there for her.
mm,
And she is there for you. She loves you like crazy. Like that's the sense I get from
mhm,
you and that sense of security you have when you talk about her.
mhm,
And that's a beautiful relationship. And that's based on how you communicate, how honest you are with each other, how you can be there for each other when you need each other most. And then other times too, you're always there for each other and you enjoy each other. And the same thing you can say about money. If you have a complicated relationship with money, it's because it's not as good as that. But
mm.
you can take what you do in your marriage and you can translate that into your relationship with money and say, okay, so honesty. I need to know how much I'm spending. I need to know how much I'm making, right? Enjoy yourself. Have, create accounts where you take a percentage of your money. It doesn't have to be a ton of money,
Mhm.
but a percentage of that, put in a fun account and save it up so that you can feel pampered one day when you make enough money to go on a little trip or a big trip or do something in between, and then have another account for your expenses and all these other things that you want to do, education and learning and expansion and fun. What else? And then your expenses, right? And all these different things and taxes, so that you can take little pieces out of and percentages and put them in each account so that you're taking care of yourself and you always know how much you have.
Yeah.
And that will help you feel better because you'll have that sense of control. And
And
if we, yeah, go ahead.
from a technological standpoint, the financial institutions that we do business with, not we, me and my wife specifically, but we collectively,
uh, yeah.
now are actually setting up algorithms and so forth to where you go into your bank account and you can go into a section where they'll say, and here's what you spent. And here's what you,
Mm-hmm.
here was the
Right.
income, here was the outgo,
Right.
and here are the categories of spending, and that
Yeah.
they actually start putting together for you. So it's not so arduous as it once was. They're making it a lot
Yes.
easier to do what you just said.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different apps you can get if you
Hmm.
want on your phone, and everybody's got a spending app and da, 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 and that'll just, that could just do it right away. So all of
Yeah.
them that, yeah, it's easier than ever to keep track of it. And now it's really about getting rid of those emotional, healing those emotional traumas that got in the way. So,
Mm.
like, if you're having a complicated relationship with money, and then maybe there's some trauma that you're avoiding that you associated with money from before, right?
Hmm.
And like, I'll give you an example. This one gentleman that I've worked with, who had trauma when he was little, when he was young, he had war trauma, as a citizen, and he was in the bombings in Europe, in London. Okay, when he was a little kid, the Nazi bombings, and so he had that trauma. And then when he was a young man, he enlisted it in the army. He didn't enlist. I think he was drafted for Vietnam. So four and probably what, 18 or 20, right? Somewhere. Right. So he's got war trauma on both sides from being a civilian and from being a soldier. And then whatever life gave him in between,
Yeah.
which I'm sure we could all list 10 traumas right now without having any sort of war experience at all.
Yeah.
And so he had a lot of trauma. And so at some point in time, he even, became destitute because that's where it manifested a lot in his finances. And when we started working together, we started clearing and healing all these traumas from when he was a child and from when he was a young adult and all the stuff in between. And he was learning, because one of the things we said, the theta brainwave, you learn what you're meant to learn from and the most positive and loving and compassionate lesson you can learn from whatever happened to you with it, even if it's really intense and we would view as very tragic. And he learned all these things. He let go of a lot of stuff. It comes back with energy of unconditional love and understanding and compassion. And so then he's a really bright guy. He's a brilliant guy. He's fascinated with money. He's fascinated with investments. he starts reading journals. He starts doing all that stuff and then taking his money and investing it. And over the years, he's set for life now. And did it
Good.
happen overnight? It wasn't like he went, oh, here's Apple, here's, $100,000, and then Apple became Apple, like it
Yeah.
wasn't that. But over the years, now he's set, and he's like, and he's able to give money to other people when they need it, and it doesn't affect his station in life. And so so that was his life experience that was holding him back.
Mm.
And when we got to it, it was great.
I want to ask you about something
Sure.
before we get into the quiz.
Sure.
Great
Yeah.
story too, by the way, a good example of it takes time in many instances.
Mm-hmm.
What about the difference between, because people talk about this all the time, especially within the more philosophical community, shall we say, the difference between free will to choose, as I talk about in my book, choices, the difference between that and what they talk about in terms of destiny, predestined, preordained. The script has been written. It's in concrete. There is no changing it. And this is my lot in life. Because you made that reference earlier too.
Right. Yeah. So I believe that we're that ball of clay, and that we're shaping it along the way. I do believe that we're influenced. In Theta Healing, we talk about how there's 4 levels, basically. Not basically, there's 4 levels. You can count them any way you want. So this is just the way it's counted here. So there's the core level, which is everything you're affected by, everything that happens in this lifetime. The second one is your ancestral level, your DNA. So you come in, and we already know this. We already know that we're carrying the traumas, right, of our ancestors. We identify with our ancestors. We identify with their suffering and what they believed and all those sort of things. And then we've got history level, which is our past life level and our collective consciousness. And then the soul level is the deepest part of all of those other 3. So there's a lot of people on your board of directors for everything that you do. You still have to take 100% responsibility because you make the final decision. But let's say you want to get married, and the ancestors are saying, get married. And then the collective consciousness is like, don't, you'll be tied down. What happens if it doesn't work? And you're listening to everything going, I don't know. And you base it on something in your childhood. And then you go, I'm getting married, or, oh, I'm not getting married, or I keep marrying the same kind of woman, like or I keep dating the same kind of person. And they're always my father. I keep marrying my father over and over and over again. Right. There's patterns that happen in our lives. And so we want to get in there and really be able to change those deeply embedded patterns into something else. And then they can change slowly. They can change quickly. It just, everybody's different.
I used to that analogy of the individual walking in a meadow, carrying their will in the palm of their hands, and they've got it cupped in front of them, saying, "I just want to do God's will. I just want to do God's will," and they toss it. God catches it, is compressing it while tears are rolling down God's face, and basically rears back and hurls it back, hits them square in the forehead with their own will compressed to a baseball, and he says, then do something with the life I gave you. You are not a puppet on a string being manipulated by forces you do not understand. And some of those forces are not external. As a matter of fact, probably 95, maybe 99% of them are all internal because of, again, what you talked about earlier, the traumas. I never even considered, because my lifestyle didn't change that much when the lockdown came in 2020 with COVID.
Right.
But a lot of people are using the term PTSD to describe the suffering, the pain, the anguish, the this, the that, the other that they went through because of the virus, because of the lockdown, because of the restrictions, and on and on and on and on. And I just have to sit back and say, okay, I hear you. You had this experience, because that wasn't my experience. I was still going to work because I was the only one there.
Right. Yeah. So it was pretty easy. Yeah.
It was pretty easy.
You had the perfect job.
Yeah, absolutely. Karen Abrams, my guest, and we're talking about her Theta Healing, and we're going to talk about the Mastering Money quiz here as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and you are listening to a program that is talking about, and I'm going to put it in this context. We are talking about, Karen Abrams and I, about the ways that we can better embrace and incorporate into our lives, into our being, the abundance, the prosperity, the money, the finance, the wealth, and so forth and so on, that I think we all want to a
Mhm.
greater or lesser degree. Okay. And we all deserve. And I'm gonna make the differentiation, Karen, between that we all deserve because of who we are, who we
Mhm.
are, and
Mhm.
not entitled
Mhm.
because I'm better than this person over here and this, and
Right.
I have then all these categories of I grew up in this city or this state, I grew up in this family with this last name, blah 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 blah. That we deserve it because of who we are. And again, that goes back to what you said earlier, the self-worth.
Right. Yeah.
Let's jump into this quiz. Break down the categories. We can go through the questions too, but what are the categories of these the sections of this quiz? And yeah, you can use mine.
Let's use yours. I haven't looked at it in a little while, so I don't remember the categories
I must
offhand.
have looked at it once real quick, and I must have missed the meditation.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. At the bottom, you get where it says, "Oh, if you're a money avoider, then do this meditation." Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So what are the categories? What's the breakdown?
So let me look because I have not looked at this in a very long time. So we're gonna do homework together here. I did do it though.
Yeah.
The-
I know you did because I have it in a PDF format
Yeah,
file that
exactly.
I was just
So
looking
let's
at a little while
see.
ago, and
Oh,
it was accurate, especially in the context of the first two categories that I know are in that
right.
list.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not so much that I felt bad that, oh, gee, I'm a penny pincher and I'm and I don't,
Uh-huh.
it's like, no, it is not a judgment. It's an evaluation. It's just saying that's where you were
Absolutely.
when you took the test.
Right,
Okay, so go ahead.
exactly. So first we talk about how you relate to money.
Hmm.
Okay. So you could I'm asking questions like, will you avoid balancing your checkbook? Are you afraid to see how much money you have in the bank? Do you
Hmm.
wait to pay your bills till you're warned about it? Or do you pay your taxes at the last minute? Do you avoid making a budget? Okay, so these are some of the questions. Can you count on other people saving you financially? Are you embarrassed that you don't know enough about money? So these are just some of the ways that we relate to money just personally, right? That's that personal relationship that we have with it. And if you think about this, what if you related this to a person, right?
Hmm.
So you could say, I don't talk to you till I need you, right? I only call you when I need you. Otherwise, I avoid you. So when you call me, I never call you back.
Mm.
That creates a lot of resentment, right? And a pushback, like, I don't think they're that good of a friend, right? And I'm counting on you to save me.
Mm. Hmm.
If you think about that, then let's see. I have to answer all these questions in order for me to move on. This is so funny, so I'm just going to put no on everything.
I
Just
understand. One of the other things too, as you're doing that, is
uh,
the aspect of one's own intuition. And I
yeah,
can share real quickly that I had a situation a few years back where there was this financial situation that was developing, and I
right.
had this plan. I had a
Uh-huh.
plan,
Mm-hmm.
and I kept getting this prompting. No, you need to do this. And I
Mm-hmm.
go, no, that's completely opposite of the plan that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
persisted and persisted, and finally I acquiesced. I still made
Mm-hmm.
the choice. I'm still responsible, but I acquiesced. And a few days after I made the decision and I took the
Uh-huh.
action based upon the choice,
Uh-huh.
I looked back and I went, wow, I am sure glad I did that 3 days
Right.
ago because if I hadn't today, it would be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of knew, you could look at it like there's an angel on your shoulder and
Yeah.
whispered in your ear if you want, or is that your intuition knowing
Yeah.
before
Either
you
way.
really know,
Yeah. Either
right?
way, thank you.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Either way, thank you, thank you, thank you. I
Yeah.
feel so blessed and grateful that
Absolutely.
I got there before. So
Yeah.
the second, it looks like the second is now, so that first one, they're based on archetypes, which then you find out which one you have.
Hmm.
First one was about, are you a money avoider? The second one is a penny pincher. So
Hmm.
there's questions like, are you tight with money? Do you believe your money could all go away in an instant? There's never enough money. Getting a good deal is more important than getting good quality. I'm not doing all of them. You have a hard time spending money on yourself for luxury items or even practical gifts.
Yeah.
So
Well, I will share
these are the
you.
kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
I will
Go ahead.
share that my wife has sort of inculcated in our situation, our relationship, and in
Uh-huh.
me, the perspective of buying quality and
Mm-hmm.
taking care of what you do buy and what you do have,
Mm-hmm.
rather than my perspective for a long time was always, nah, if I can always buy another one. And I remember an interview many years ago with a gentleman who wrote a book called
Mm-hmm.
Built-in Obsolescence. And I'm
Oh,
going,
interesting.
what? Why?
Uh,
And of course, it's of course to help to boost the economy. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, hold it. Why would I want to buy something that is the warranty's 3 years, and at the end of 3 years, literally to the day after the 3 years, it breaks down, and now I have to go buy
right.
another.
Right.
And
Right.
that's why when I talk with people about, well, do we buy American? Do we buy
Right.
Ecuadorian? Do we buy Chinese, Japanese, German?
Right.
And of course, in this country, many people are very patriotic, say always buy American. It's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but if it's crap, why would
Right.
I
You
want
want
to
to buy
buy it?
quality. Right.
And I'm not real thrilled with buying products made in China, not because it's China and the government, it's because it's not quality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like they make it just to make it to sell, I guess, to us, because we're so
Right.
gullible that we'll just keep buying it and buying it and buying it, even if it breaks down. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of that. Matter of fact, there was a pair of
Right.
shoes that I bought when we used to visit Santa Barbara back in
Mm-hmm.
the late 1990s into the 2000s.
Uh,
SAS pair of shoes. Do you
uh-huh.
know how long
Okay.
those SAS shoes lasted?
Tell me.
13 years. 13
Wow.
years.
Nice. Nice.
Now, if
Wow.
that is not a ringing endorsement, I wish they were an advertiser for SAS shoes. I don't know what else is, because when your shoes last like
Yeah.
that, and I
Mm-hmm.
paid over $150, and I'm going, I've never, and when I bought them, I've never
Right.
paid 100. Why would I want to pay $150? Da, 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 da. Again, it goes back to one of the things my wife said, buy
Right.
quality and take care of what you have.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
continue.
Um, what is that? Oh, I think my brother said something funny. It's like buy it at a quality price or pay. It was like buy at a high price or pay twice, something like that. You
Yeah,
know,
I've
so
heard that
it,
too. I've heard that too. Yeah,
yeah. And obviously high price, you have to see quality. You've got to see quality more than anything.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we
So
bought a washer just recently. It was over
yeah.
$1,000.
Right. Oh yeah, that's where they're at.
All right,
That's where
and
they're at.
it's
Yeah, good one.
electronic. I think it's a Samsung, same brand as my
Hmm.
phone. However,
Right.
you can't link the two, and I wouldn't want to anyway. And we really like it, and it does the job that we want. And we'll see how long it lasts. But anyway, I think your brother's probably very accurate in that regard. That if you're going to pay, make
Right.
sure you're paying for quality. And I would say if you're going to
Absolutely.
pay a high price for something and it offers a protection plan, I'd get it.
Hmm.
Because
Right.
what's an extra $20 or $30 to
Right.
the 1,000 or 1,500 or whatever it is?
Yeah,
That's a
absolutely.
pittance, and at least you know that it's covered by some kind of protection insurance.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. You want to make sure you're getting quality and kind of going from there. Now the next archetype on this is the love-hate relationship with money.
Mm,
So this is, does your bank balance dictate your mood? This is a big one for people, right? I mean, who doesn't feel better if they've got a lot in their bank account, and
yeah.
who doesn't feel better if there's $8 left? Some people who have faith and go, it's fine that it's $8. I'm going to make it all, it's coming in tomorrow anyway, so we're good.
Yeah.
So people can look at that and have different reactions to that. Do you resent wealthy people to some degree, but would love to be one of them? Do you aspire to earn enough to pay your bills when you struggle financially? Your resentment towards money increases. And do you consider anyone amassing or enjoying their wealth to be less spiritual than you are, or less spiritual in general? Your
Mm.
desire to have money is great, yet the thought of having too much of it is disconcerting, right? And have you ever thought of, well, what if I won the lottery and I won $100 million?
Yeah.
Now I've got to worry about my family getting kidnapped. A lot of people think that, like, if I win too much, even though they want to win that money so they could help everybody and help themselves,
Right.
they feel like I'm going to lose something very valuable by gaining this money.
There's a
And that's
self-fulfilling
another
prophecy
thing,
again.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
self-fulfilling
another,
prophecy.
exactly. And the last one here is, let's see, what is this archetype here? Let's see, you enjoy using your money for goods and services for your immediate pleasure. Oh yeah, the spender. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the spender. So this is, people who get a rush out of spending, right? And once again, there's no judgment, because you could probably find a little bit of yourself in a lot of these,
Yeah.
and or in all four of these. It's definitely true that that could happen. So um it's this just gives you a marker of where you're at now, and then gives you, like I said, these energetic downloads to help you improve that relationship, move it up, move it to become more healthy, which is what, that's all you want. You want to have a good, healthy relationship with money, and then it's going to come back to you, it's going to support you, and it's going to help you move forward. So here we go. Do you enjoy buying gifts for others, helping out and treating people? You're willing to spend money to make life a blast. Do you get a thrill from buying something? It doesn't really matter what it is.
Hmm.
You can regret a purchase after the bills roll in. And my mother, God bless her, was she was a spender. She was a compulsive spender. And so I remember when she was moving from one house to the other, we found in her closet, in this beautiful closet, there were beautiful clothes that still had price tags on them,
Oh, wow.
because it was the rush that she wanted, and boots, gorgeous shoes. I was so upset that I didn't wear a 6.5, because I was an 8.5. I couldn't even squeeze in it if I wanted to. Get the, like, great shoes. Like, that's just so
Uh,
sad.
yeah.
And so
Well, and like
so
I have a hat that I
yeah.
wear. I used to wear it during the interviews,
Uh-huh.
but because I can't get the lighting right, my hat would disappear as I would
Uh-huh.
move around. Um, but
Oh yeah.
I have three of them. I have three of them. Now, one of them is a work hat. I will
Uh-huh.
use it here on the hill when I'm working outside.
Uh-huh.
But I have two others that I actually went ahead and I bought a steamer, because when I went to send it to the cleaners to get it cleaned, the cleaning
Uh-huh.
was as
Uh-huh.
expensive as if I just bought a new one. And it was still
Oh,
perfectly
okay.
good. All I have to do is
Uh-huh.
steam it a little bit, pat it and all this kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I can clean it myself and it'll be just fine. It'll look fine
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. Again, it's another one of those things, taking care of your things.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's interesting. And yeah, and I fell into each one of those categories, in terms of, yeah, I'm a penny pincher in the sense that I monitor. And that was the other aspect of the first category,
Mm-hmm.
in that
Mm-hmm.
it's not that I am afraid. It's not a question of, I mean, who balances their checkbook anymore? All you have to do is go onto your app and you can see where you are, and you can see what's pending
Right.
and
Yeah,
what's cleared.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
So they've made
Mm-hmm.
it, again, once
Absolutely.
again, they've made it very easy. But what
Mm-hmm.
I would do is I would be checking that throughout the day, not only to see what has cleared, but also to make sure that nobody had stolen. Because this happened to me twice. I went to a gas
Right.
station, used the
Oh,
debit
okay.
card, and the next thing I know, $1,300 had disappeared to someplace. Believe it or not, I
Yeah.
tracked it all the way to Malaysia. I got the money back,
Yeah.
of course, but
Good.
but I watch from that standpoint. So I don't know if that falls under that category of necessarily balancing your checkbook, but I'm certainly observant. I'm watching, making sure that,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
oh good, the rent check cleared. Oh good, the car payment cleared. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
groceries, oh yeah, and the balance goes down and down and down. And it's like, okay,
Right.
but we still have enough in there to cover the rest of the bills. And this is
Right.
something I think we talk about, going back to what I said at the beginning of the program, being grateful, even if it comes in and goes out. Be
Right.
grateful that it was there to pay for the electricity and the car insurance and the
Mhm.
groceries
Right.
and whatever else it is that somebody needs. My wife likes, she has her needs for a certain kind of shampoo. She has a need
Hmm.
for a certain kind of face cream, and so on and so on.
Hmm.
With me, a guy, I don't have those kinds of things, but I've got a prescription face cream for rosacea, but that's a whole nother thing.
Uh,
That's different. That's medical more than anything else. But I think that aspect of gratitude for whatever
mhm.
you have. And
Yeah.
then I want to talk a little bit in terms of these categories as well. This aspect of making room for more,
Hmm.
even though, all right, let's just say the bank account only has the $8. I've got room for plenty, but
Right.
that's
Yeah.
not where we need to make the room. The bank account, it's got more than enough
Right.
room,
Right. Right.
but that's not
Right.
where we need to make the room. Where do we need to make the room?
Well, in your
Hmm.
allowance, in your receiving now, and in your heart, exactly, in
Hmm.
your heart, because like the people who work with me tend to be people who are the rocks in their family's life. They're the rock of their friends. They give great advice, and they're also caught in that sandwich generation, right? They're taking care of kids that are coming up, and they're taking care of aging parents,
Mm,
and then they have a business, or they're professional, or something like that. They're working, so there's a lot of places where everybody else's needs are getting met before yours.
yeah.
And so what happens, what's really interesting about that when I really was diving into it is that they become the best place to cancel plans was with yourself. The easiest place instead of calling somebody else and saying, I can't go to lunch. Sorry. I know you have a big problem. You wanted to talk to me about it. I get it right. And this is the way that women were raised, right? To sacrifice ourselves and help other people. That's just an earning our existence. That's the way we
Hmm.
earn our existence.
Yeah.
And so when you come from that kind of place, you start breaking these little micro promises to yourself all the time. And think about it this way. Remember when you're a kid and your parents said, I'm going to take you to blue blah blah, right? I'm going to take you to ice cream. We're going out to dinner tonight. And you're like, I've been waiting all day to do this thing, or I'm going to take you this place, right? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's 5 o'clock, you're ready to go. And I can't do it. The client called. I can't go. I'm sorry. I have to do this other thing. Your grandma called. I have to go, whatever. And you're like, but you promised.
Mm.
You promised. Right. And we were so upset. And your parent is, I'm so sorry, honey, or whatever, whatever happens right there. Right. But you are devastated that they used the P word. And then it didn't happen. It's supposed to happen when you do that. And so when you make these tiny little break these little micro promises yourself, I'm not going to get a chance to meditate today. I'm not going to get a chance to take my walk. I've got to go here. No, I can't play my guitar. I can't do this. It's crazy. I have too many things to do. All these things are happening. And so, there's fires here. There's fires here, right? You're putting out all the fires. So pretty soon, those little micro broken promises add up to a whole bunch where we lose faith in ourselves
Mm.
and faith in our ability to change our lives. We don't believe we can do it anymore because
Yeah.
you've never kept your promise to me ever.
Yeah.
So what am I thinking that you're the one, the me of you, right? The you of me, that I'm going to be able to do this when, what, right? So
Yeah.
we have to lean into giving ourselves that time again, giving ourselves time to do the things that make us happy because a lot of times we've forgotten how to have fun. And you can do things simply. They don't have to be, rent a Rolls Royce and go out with your friends partying,
Yeah.
you don't have to spend money to do it. You can do it in a very reasonable way, in that way where you're just doing something that you love to do and remembering what used to make you happy. If you can't remember what's going on in the moment, of what
Yeah.
makes you happy, just lean back and give yourself 5 minutes, give yourself 10 or 15 or 20 minutes and make a little date with yourself that's unbreakable. Now, obviously, something comes down, you've got to, if there's emergencies, obviously, but if there's anything less than that,
Yeah.
then doing that rebuilds that trust you have in yourself, rebuilds that confidence you have in your own ability to change your life and how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we have to start to gain that confidence and that trust back, because then we'll trust the universe more too, without being, we don't have to believe that uh, God will provide all the time in order for, if we don't believe that, you know what I mean? It's, we want to be able to get into that state, but still see what's going on around us, right?
Yeah.
And still add our actions and our energy to what we're doing. I do believe that this lifetime we're co-creating, that it's not etched in stone at all.
Yeah.
And I think there's lots of potentials for greatness to happen
Mm-hmm.
because you're born with these musical gifts and you can play 7 instruments by the time you're 6 years old. You came in with a gift. Let's focus in on that gift so that you can give that to everybody and everybody can see. Is that your destiny? Sure is your option, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to run away from your gift and nobody knows how good you are and you just want to play for yourself, well, maybe you'll make yourself happy, but you won't have that destiny of the great blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
You'll go somewhere else. So I just think we have the choices, like you're saying, there's choices we're making and there's decisions we're making along the way as we find out what our gifts are and do we want to share them and we want to do that. And that gratitude is so important to to feel like you have a rich life and to know where you have that rich life, and is so, the more you focus in on that, whenever it's going to show up, the universe will keep giving you reasons to be more grateful.
Yeah.
It's just part of those laws, of giving and receiving and of gratitude.
Aside from this conversation, most of the interviews that I do, and then when I go into the radio station to produce programs, or I need to do some editing, some production in that regard, and if my mind has been on, I'll just use the term, the dollar sign, or no matter what the
Right.
conversation in the head is, it almost gets pushed out for a period of time because
Right.
I took my father's advice, and I probably took it long before he ever gave it to me, but I'm glad he gave it to me anyway. And that was, Richard, you need to find something you love doing because you're going to be doing it for a long time.
Right.
Don't get stuck like me, which he did not. And I was fortunate. There have been 2 jobs in my lifetime that I loved and love doing. One of them is what I do now as a broadcast producer in this career of 45 years. The other one started when I was in 8th grade as a paperboy. And I swear, if even at 64, if that job were available, I would take it again. The way it was, the bicycle, the baskets in the back, the big paper bags in the front, going out collecting money, because I got to meet some incredible people. And I think that's part of the reason why this is such a joy for me too, because I get to meet incredible people and have great conversations. I made a lot of good friends along the way, being a paperboy for 5 years, from 8th grade through high school, all the way through senior year. And I had some money issues during that time. Matter of fact, believe it or not, even in the 8th grade, I wasn't delivering for very long. I was fired for misappropriation of funds. I was spending the money that I was collecting on models that I was building, airplanes and ships. That kind of thing. It was still misappropriation of funds because I wasn't able to pay the paper bill. But they hired me back after a while, and I managed to keep a fairly stable ship, The one thing you said that I'd love for us to touch upon here real quickly, and that has to do with trusting the universe. Sounds to me like that does have to be in balance with everything else that you've talked about here. You can't just carte blanche. Now, my wife and I, when we decided to move to Santa Barbara, we'd both lost our jobs. And we're sitting in front of the TV, and she says, I'm scared. I feel like we're on the edge of a cliff. And of course, I said, well, everything I have read, all the programs I've been through, the authors I've interviewed, and on and on and on. There's only one answer I can think of, or one conclusion I can come to. They all would say that when you come to the edge of a cliff, and I remember processing this, thinking, this order is counterintuitive. It should be the other way around, but it's not, and it's appropriate. You jump and you trust. Not the other way around. You jump and trust. And we did. And I had no fear, none whatsoever. And the next thing you know, May of 2006, here we are. And we've been here ever since. And I still hold that out there to the universe, saying, look, when you are ready for us to physically move somewhere else, you will make a way, just like you did in
Right.
2006. But I am still going to
Right.
be doing what I can do to
Uh-huh.
be ready for that time. And that's what I've been doing for the
Right.
last 18 years. Um,
Right.
Talk to us about, because again, you've got two things there, and they're kind of the same thing, our intuition, i.e.,
Right.
versus, not versus so much, but in combination with trusting the universe, the great universe,
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Well,
balancing
I believe
that
you,
with everything else.
right. You've got to have discernment and know and see what's going on, and then understand that if you trust and it's all about taking the actions that you need to take, having and using trust to help you along the way, having the discernment to know that, well, gee, if I'm selling, fur coats in Florida, that's probably not a good idea. It's wet and hot and rainy. This is not going to work, right?
Yeah.
So you need to have discernment in there to know what needs to be tweaked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so is God going to provide that if you try to sell it there? I would say that maybe you should look at a different product that might be selling a little bit better than that.
Yeah.
So you have to balance these things, and the trust is really, really important.
Yeah.
Trust is very important in creating that. And as long as it's, how do I say it? Blind trust, I think you have to see what's there too. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean like if you see something like you said, if you see the cliff, you can still choose to jump
Yeah.
and then trust. You can do that. That's fine. If you have blind, faith or blind trust, and then it really doesn't look like it's going to pan out this way, then maybe that discernment is trying to help you guide with that intuition,
Yeah.
guide you down a different path so that you can be provided for,
Hmm.
and you
Exactly.
can match these with, so being really aware, a lot of people, even in very complicated times, which we are tending to be in right now, there's a lot of really savvy people who went, oh, I just need to shuffle the deck this way. I mean, remember when COVID hit, a lot of restaurants, I was some crazy number, 60% of the restaurants went down. It was just a crazy number.
Hmm.
But I just remember there were some places that were about 20 minutes away from here that were restaurants and that were like popular, but they decided to start delivering produce, right?
Yes.
And they took their delivery people and they said, hey, you want produce? We'll send you produce. So, because we know you can't go. And so it was brilliant and simple. It was like, oh, they get all this food. Why don't
Yeah.
they, let's pass it along.
Yeah.
And people shuffled the deck in ways that still use their talents and their gifts.
Hmm.
And then some people didn't. And that's the thing about fear. Fear is a completely natural emotion for us to have. It's
Sure.
just that if it takes over our lives, we don't go anywhere, right?
Yeah.
We run into the forest fire. We don't run out of it.
Yeah.
And so it just freezes us. And that's when we've got to figure things out. I had this woman or kind of an example of that, where she grew up in a very emotionally abusive house. Okay. Parents had tempers, especially dad. And she tried to earn her existence as much as possible through achievement, so that she was kind of appeasing the lion, right? The angry lion in the house. And so that when she got older, she was old enough to get jobs, she started getting jobs where she had the same kind of parent in a boss, right? It's someone who
Hmm.
gaslit, who blamed her for their problems. And so this was going on from job to job to job. And so we worked on healing all that trauma that she had in her childhood mostly, and then the traumas that happened along the way, because she was kind of dating the same boss, so to speak, right? She kept courting the same kind of, energetically she was so used to that unconsciously she was attracting that into her life to work it out. And so when we worked on all this trauma work and healed her, and I always call this work like the lightest way to let go of the heaviest things in your life. So we're not going back and going, oh my God, this thing happened, and oh, I can't go back to the house where this happened. Right? We're not doing that. We're
No.
saying
No.
this energy has stained you. It has marked you. And all of those people who are traumatized and want to traumatize others are looking at you and going,
Mm.
oh, you have no boundaries. I can get you to do what I want. And
Yeah.
so you kind of just attract each other. But when you heal this stuff this way, saying this is just trapped energy, let's learn what you're meant to learn from the situation. Let's let go of it. Let's bring that love and compassion in there and move on. Then you
Yeah.
get to go somewhere else. And that's what she did. And she finally found a job. So amazing. She's got an incredible boss. Same thing, a company that really needed her help and her expertise. And the problems started showing up. She started solving them. And he was like, thank you. And all the people who were working there saying, thank you. You were a godsend. Oh my gosh, you're the best thing that's ever happened to us.
Yeah.
And she's being supported by the boss. Like just like, you're doing a great job. I know this is really tough stuff we've been working on for a while, but keep going. I love what you're doing. We're really grateful for you.
Yeah.
And so finally, after all this time, all that stuff cleared, and let's bring back into this. She started leaning into what made her happy.
Mm.
And instead of just sacrificing yourself for other people and helping other people, she went back and went, what do I need? Oh, I think I need meditation. What else do I need? I think I need to do things that I really love to do. I think I need to see my friends more, and all these things, she started doing them. All of that together brought her to a job that has been wonderful, and she's making wonderful money. And she's like, yes, I got it.
Karen Abrams is my guest. We're talking about Theta Healing. She is a Theta Healing, Theta Healer, a Master Healer, actually, a Theta Master Healer. ThinkTheta.com. We'll be linked to that website. We encourage you to go there as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. This is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan. Karen Abrams, my guest. You talked about a meditation. Now, I know that probably at the end of these questionnaires that we answer, we get the results back, that it's maybe is it a little different meditation for each questionnaire, or is it a, so to speak, one, I don't want to say one fits all, but it's the one that you recommend for people if they want to change their mindset, raise their consciousness when it comes to money and so on and so forth. Can you talk to us about that and how we can do that?
Well, with all of these things, we said the money avoider, the spender, the love-hate relationship, and the penny pincher, right? So these different aspects of your personality that are based on the experiences that you've had on all these levels that we were talking about before, and primarily also just in this lifetime, right? So these, at the bottom, it'll say, okay, well, if you scored a 6 or higher, right, and you're a money avoider, listen to this. And this is where I go into a theta session with you, a mini theta session about 5 minutes long, where I'm going to say, would you like to know what it feels like to be safe? Like, what is money? Like, you go into different things like, what's the most loving definition of money? What is, does it feel safe for you to be in your body and in the world? What does that feel like? What does it feel like to be completely loved, completely valued? Completely listened to and acknowledged? Because it might be that the reason you are an avoider is because there was so much trauma in that space that you couldn't get, you couldn't get away from it. So these are ways you're getting these feelings, because when we don't know what it feels like to be loved, it's very difficult for us to find someone to love and have them love us back, because the person that we're going to find is going to have the same negative beliefs that we have. So if I find someone who doesn't know what it feels like to be loved, and they don't know, and I don't know, we have the opportunity to figure it out together, or we don't figure it out and we sabotage the relationship and we go in different directions, right? It happens a lot. So in this, you can literally energetically, like a computer download the feelings with your permission, so that you can have that reference point. I know what it feels like to be valued now. I didn't, because my dad never listened to me and my mom was too busy doing things around the house. She couldn't, she was so busy in her own world and trying to take care of all of us that she didn't really take care of us emotionally, just physically. And so now I know what it feels like to be loved. Now I know what it feels like to be cherished and nurtured. I never got that from my parents. Dang, but now I kind of feel it. And I'm like, ooh, that's kind of wild. I actually feel that that's happening. And you just move through the world a little bit differently. And because of that, you start attracting different people in different kinds of situations. You may not look into an investment that seemed a little sketchy before. Like before, you might have felt desperate, like this could double my money, this could triple my money, I should do it. And even though all the signs are there for this not to work, for this to be different than it sounds like, but I'm going to do it because because I'm desperate. right? Desperate people do those sorts of things when they need the money the most. A lot of times they lose it because that
Mm,
desperation, they're grasping for anything that's
yeah.
coming to them, but they're not listening and they're not watching and they're not hearing
There's
and they're
all
not doing. Yeah,
there's also that lesson of the lottery winners who
right.
they are in that attitude of lack. They've been there for years, what for
Yeah,
whatever reasons, and then they win the multi-million.
right.
And I forget, one guy won 1 billion or what have you. Anyway, and they've tracked this, and 1 year later, most of them are right back where they started from
Yeah,
for a lot of different reasons, but
yeah,
that ties into a lot of other subjects that I could bring up. I wanted to bring up
yeah,
the issue, the aspects of the law of attraction. I wanted to
yeah,
bring up the some other concepts as well in terms of our not just our relationship with money, but now there's the aspect of uh, uh, again the whole aspect of gratefulness in terms of prosperity. I mean, as I shared with you
mm-hmm.
about my very first commercial radio job,
uh,
I started out minimum wage 1980 with
uh,
$3.65 an hour. 15 years
uh,
later, I was making a whopping $7.35 an hour. And during that
uh,
period of time, I met a lot of people that came through the station,
uh,
employees who complained that, oh, you don't pay me enough to do this or that or the other and this kind of thing. And I could have gone down that road, but I was given a time slot in the evening where I could do interviews.
uh,
And I started to look at that and I'm going, wait a minute. Okay, so I'm still making this minimum wage. All right, I get
right.
that. But
Uh,
maybe I'm getting paid in other ways. And I was given the time slot. They weren't charging me for it. I was an employee. And what do
right.
they're not,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't sell it. And if they did, I'd move it and so forth. I'm getting the contacts, I'm getting the materials, I'm getting the experience. Um,
Uh,
Not only in terms of like doing the interviews, but also the scheduling and all of that kind of stuff. And I was also learning about comparative religions, the different sects of Christianity. But we had this attitude around there that there wasn't enough.
mm-hmm.
And I thought, no, I'm not going down that road
Mm-hmm.
because it didn't feel right. Kind of like what you were just talking about with this one
Right.
example. It didn't
Uh,
feel right.
uh,
And it may not have meshed real well with the status quo. I didn't
mm-hmm.
care. I was already rocking the boat as it was because I would have people on like yourself, but I
Mm-hmm.
would use the vocabulary that I knew that the listeners would relate to rather than maybe what we've been using here.
Uh-huh.
And it was wonderful. And
Uh-huh.
I'm very grateful for that experience, that 15 years, along with everything
Mm-hmm.
else.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have this feeling that a lot of people they're beginning the process of
Uh-huh.
starting to take an assessment of
Uh-huh.
what they actually do have in their lives. And I
Right.
know you're helping them
Yes.
to do that too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important to focus on what you have as opposed to what you don't. And I was thinking about this today and a few days ago too, is like if you look at the places that you find challenging in your life, there's usually you revisit it with disappointment. Like let's say if it's money or like your business, you want more clients. And every time you look at your business and you go, oh, I just never have enough clients. You know, I'm so
Yeah.
disappointed. It doesn't matter how much I work at this, I never get more clients. So lame. Like it's so, but you always dive into whenever you think of your business, you always dive into that disappointment. Or I don't know how to market and I hate doing it and I did it right, whatever it is. And but every time you go to that place that you have that challenge, you go into those really negative emotions, really negative beliefs
Yeah.
and perspectives. And then you go, and then I thought about that. I'm like, well, that's what's caught like at some point in time, right? The tail's wagging the dog.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so all of those thoughts and feelings are just continuing to perpetuate bad decisions and closing yourself off from any real solution because you're so disappointed. And everyone can be disappointed and mad and things like that and outraged. It's a human thing. We're
Sure.
allowed to have the emotion. And then once we have it, then where do we go? We got to go somewhere else afterwards. I always say that like anger is a great emotion because it's very powerful. And if I'm mad at you, it might be because you did something that I don't believe I deserved. right? So I'm
Mm.
setting a boundary and I'm like, you know what, Richard, that made me really mad when you did that. And then, and so that gives you that deserving. Now, if I held on to that when I left and went, Richard, such a this and a that, and every time I think about Richard, God, I hate him so much. He did this thing to me. Who's losing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Who's losing? And so it just perpetuates this anger and this anger and this anger.
Yeah.
And I can never be your friend. Or there's always going to be a barrier between me and you because of that.
Yeah.
Instead
Yeah.
of right. And
Mm.
so there's these emotions. It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to have these things because it's telling you something that a desire you do have versus a desire that you don't. And now you're being able to identify it.
Yeah.
Then it's like, you got to switch it around. I'm looking forward to finding a solution to this.
Yeah.
This has
Yeah.
been a challenge for a long time, and I'm really looking forward to finding great advice on this and moving forward in this place.
Yeah.
Because then I can do something. But the other, rah, rah, rah all the time, just not
Yeah.
getting you anywhere.
Yeah. Karen,
Pointless.
yeah, Karen Abrams, my guest, and we are talking about Think Theta, thinktheta.com. Boy, I tell you, you got to be careful how you say that because it's like think theta, thought thumb. I win. No, no, no.
Yeah, yeah.
Thinktheta.com. That TH
Albert.
just sticks there.
Yeah, yeah.
We
Think
encourage you to go
theta.
to the website. We'll be linked to that and get more information. Take that money mastering your money quiz. I think that'll be fascinating for you, and take it more than once. A little time go by, but take it, and then that meditation is available to you. And I'm gonna pull that up myself and take a listen to that, and then take the quiz again. And see where I fall. But this is a fascinating conversation. I'm Richard Dugan. This is Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We're here with Karen Abrams. And Karen, before we wrap things up here, because we've gone way long, and I'm so glad we have, and I thank you for giving us so much time here on the program. We're going to have you back because I do want to talk about some other areas as well. And we can talk about money, but we can talk about some other areas that you also help people in. And we'll define those as we move forward. But I really do appreciate the abundance of time that you've given us here on the program.
Oh, it's been my honor. I love, you're wonderful. Your community is amazing. And I'm so honored to be here and be of support. It's great.
I'm going to ask you those three questions that I asked you the last time, and that I ask
Okay.
even returning guests, because sometimes the
Okay.
answers change. Before I do that,
Okay.
I want to let you know that I thank you, folks, for listening to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for a special edition of Tell Me Your Story, and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. And that is following the news, streaming live at those times at richarddugan.com. We are podcasting on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry. We're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. And we hope that you will subscribe as well as click notifications so that the next time I post a conversation, you'll be notified and you'll be able to listen in and hopefully be entertained and educated and inspired as well. We also want to remind you that the book Choices, 5 Steps for Life is now available at Amazon in both hardcover, I should say, hardcover, paperback, and Kindle with Audible soon to be added. All I have to do is sit down and record it, and I will. So hang loose. It'll be coming soon. And we also hope that you will take time during this decade of perfect vision to listen to that still small voice in that quiet, peaceful, calm place that sometimes has been referred to as, your inner closet, if you will. All right. Or that inner space where you can, where, by the way, a fascinating part of this is no one else can get to. I don't care what technology they have. Nobody else can get there. And Karen, I used to look for a place on the planet where if I could just get there and get away from everybody. And then I
Right.
realized that if I can get there, so can they. And that's when it dawned on me. Oh, yeah, it's in here. It's in here. So with all of that being said, we're going to go ahead and ask those final questions of our very special guest. Thank you so much again for the time. The first of those questions is, who is Karen Abrams?
Who is I?
Who is, there you go.
Who is I? That's such a great question. And I always go off into space you've asked me this before, and I go off into space to think about, I feel like I'm a, a girl, a friend, a woman, a mom, a sister, and a musician, a
Mm,
healer, and just someone who's here also just to help people have a better life than they
mm.
do right now. And that's what makes me tick.
What gets you up in the morning?
Knowing that I have another chance to live my purpose, and to be of service to others, and
Mm,
a chance at feeling joy and having other reasons to feel happy during the day.
mm. And finally, what was your best day?
What was my best day? So I won't say that every day is my best day. I will say that some of my best days have been when I really feel completely free. And one of the best days that I ever had was a day actually when I was in Hawaii on the Big Island. And it was the day we were actually going to leave, but we still had time before we were going to leave and get on the airplane to go to this one beautiful beach that had turquoise water. It was just really gorgeous. We just got in the water and it was like a bath. And I just felt like I could stay there forever. I'm sure everyone there, why people go to Hawaii. I was in the most beautiful, gorgeous place on the planet, at least for me. I was in the most beautiful, gorgeous, clear water, and I was still on my vacation, and I really seized the moment instead of going, oh my God, I can only do this for 5 more minutes and then I have to go back home. I just stayed in the moment, and because of that, it's felt like it's eternal because I can always go back there anytime I bring myself there.
Mm. Once again, thank you so much for this abundance of time. And we look forward to having you back again to continue this conversation about the work that you're doing to help folks. We encourage people to go to thinktheta.com. We'll be linked to that website. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to all. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.